Self-respect is not a declaration. It is a quiet, steady vibration that others can feel before you even speak. It's the way a woman holds herself, not as someone trying to impress the room, but as someone who already knows she belongs there. The mature woman who is truly irresistible doesn't chase admiration, she embodies it. Her self-respect is not sharp or defensive, it's soft, grounded, and immovable, like the earth beneath your feet. People sense it, they respond to it, they adjust themselves around it without realizing why. When a woman practices self-respect, she no longer bargains with her own value. She doesn't plead for someone to see her, nor does she contort herself to fit into someone else's expectations. Instead, she becomes deeply intimate with her own essence. She knows what nourishes her, what drains her, what ignites her curiosity, and what dims her spirit. And because she knows these things, she refuses to compromise the parts of herself that matter. She lets go of people who cannot meet her where she stands, not with anger, but with the serene understanding that protecting her peace is an act of love, not just for herself, but for the life she intends to live. You can always tell when a woman has reached this point. Her boundaries stop sounding like walls and start sounding like clarity. She no longer says yes out of guilt or fear. She no longer apologizes for taking up space, for needing rest, for wanting reciprocity. She stops engaging in emotional negotiations that only leave her depleted. Instead, she makes decisions rooted in her inner balance. And what's fascinating is that the world responds to her differently when she does. Opportunities, friendships, and relationships shift. Some fall away, others deepen, and the right ones are drawn toward her as naturally as a river moves toward the sea. Self-respect gives her a particular ease, a way of moving through life without the tension of trying to prove something. She does not need to be louder, prettier, more agreeable, or more dramatic to be valued. She understands that true power does not come from being seen as more than others, but from seeing herself clearly. She knows who she is when things are going well, and she knows who she is when the ground beneath her shakes. She is not defined by the approval of others. She is defined by the inner conversation she has with her own soul. And because she lives with this internal harmony, she becomes unshakable in ways that are deeply attractive. Not intimidating, attractive. People feel good in her presence because she is good within herself. She is not looking for someone to complete her story. She is looking for someone who can walk beside her with integrity. She is not trying to be chosen. She is choosing. And that shift, subtle as it appears, changes everything about her energy. She becomes irresistible in the truest sense, not because she's trying to be, but because she already is. With self-respect, even her silence gains weight. Even her no sounds like an invitation to understand her better. Even her absence is felt, not as a void, but as a reminder that her presence is a privilege, not an entitlement. And this is the essence of her irresistibility. She moves through the world as someone who understands the preciousness of her time, her heart, and her energy. She does not squander these things. She gives them consciously. And in doing so, she teaches others how to treat her without ever raising her voice or demanding anything. If a woman wants to become irresistible, she must first learn to honor the quiet truth within her. Everything else flows from that center. When she carries herself with authentic self-respect, she no longer needs to reach for admiration, for love, or for validation. These things begin to reach for her. And that is the quiet, radiant power of a mature woman who knows her worth. She becomes a force that draws the world to meet her where she stands. Emotional intelligence is the gentle art of understanding what moves within you and what moves within others, and responding to both with clarity instead of chaos. A mature woman who masters this becomes irresistibly magnetic, not because she is trying to control the room, but because she brings a certain harmony to it. You can feel it in the way she listens, without rushing to correct, defend, or dominate the moment. She listens the way one watches the ocean, with curiosity, patience, and a quiet respect for its depth. She doesn't fear emotions, whether they are her own or someone else's. She has learned that emotions are not enemies to be conquered, but messages to be understood. So, instead of reacting impulsively, she pauses, not to suppress anything, but to allow clarity to arise. Her calm is not passive, it's deliberate. She knows that when she is centered, she can choose her response, rather than be thrown around by the first wave of feeling that crashes against her. And in that choice, she finds her power. People are drawn to her because she doesn't create unnecessary storms. She doesn't escalate tension, she dissolves it with presence. If someone lashes out, she does not mirror their chaos. If someone withdraws, she does not chase them with panic. She has learned the rhythm of human behavior, the ebb and flow of emotion, and she moves with it instead of fighting against it. Her poise becomes a kind of refuge. Others feel safe around her because she is safe within herself. Emotional intelligence also gives her the ability to speak with remarkable clarity. She doesn't bury her truth behind sarcasm or passivity, nor does she weaponize her words. Instead, she communicates from a place of grounded honesty. She can say what she feels without blaming, what she needs without demanding, and what she won't tolerate without hostility. And because her expression is aligned with her inner calm, people hear her. They don't just listen, they receive her. This is part of what makes her irresistible. She brings understanding into a world addicted to misunderstanding. She brings patience into a world obsessed with rushing. She brings compassion into a world that too often rewards hardness. And because she embodies these qualities, she becomes a mirror for others. They find themselves softening, opening, growing simply by being in her presence. A mature woman with emotional intelligence also has a remarkable sense of accountability. She does not hide behind excuses or pride. She can admit when she is wrong, apologize with sincerity, and correct herself with grace. This level of honesty is rare, and when others see it, they trust her, not because she is perfect, but because she is genuine. She doesn't pretend that she has outgrown all her flaws. She simply refuses to let them control her. And this again is part of her magnetism. She is human without being chaotic, vulnerable without being fragile. She also understands the emotional landscapes of others. She pays attention to tone, body language, the shifts in energy that many overlook. She notices when someone is hurting beneath their anger or afraid beneath their silence. She sees beneath the surface. This doesn't mean she tries to fix everyone. No, she has learned the difference between empathy and emotional labor. But it does mean that she meets people where they are, without judgment, without pressure. Others feel recognized around her, not because she makes grand gestures, but because she sees them fully. Her emotional intelligence allows her relationships, romantic, platonic, professional, to flourish. She does not fear closeness, nor does she cling. She is connected but not dependent, warm but not overwhelmed, available but not depleted. She has learned to offer love without losing herself in the process, to give understanding without sacrificing her own peace. And that balance, that gentle equilibrium, is profoundly alluring. What makes her irresistible is not that she has mastered emotion like a skill, but that she has befriended it like a wise companion. She knows that emotions are simply currents moving through life, and when she lets them flow without resistance, she becomes a woman whose presence calms storms, whose words bring clarity, and whose energy draws others in, not with force, but with grace. Independence is a quiet and beautiful declaration that a woman has created a life she can stand in without trembling. It does not mean she rejects connection or closes herself off from love. It simply means she is not waiting for someone else to hand her permission to live fully. A mature woman who embodies independence becomes irresistible because she doesn't cling, she invites. She doesn't chase, she attracts. She doesn't collapse into someone's world, she expands her own. And others naturally gravitate toward the openness she creates. There is something profoundly magnetic about a woman who is whole on her own. She wakes up with purpose, not because she has someone to impress, but because she has cultivated a relationship with herself that is rich and meaningful. Her interests, her passions, her work, her friendships, her routines, they are not placeholders until a partner arrives. They are expressions of her inner world. And when a woman is genuinely engaged with her own life, her presence becomes a field of energy others can feel. It's the difference between being a guest in your own story and being the author of it. You can sense the difference immediately. A woman who is independent moves through life with a natural ease. She doesn't measure her worth by someone else's attention. She doesn't wait for approval to take a step forward. She makes choices based on what aligns with her soul, not what keeps the peace or satisfies expectations. She does not ask, will they like this, so much as she asks, does this honor me? And because she is guided by this quiet inner compass, her actions feel intentional, grounded, and deeply compelling. Her independence also shows in her emotional landscape. She does not rely on someone else to rescue her from loneliness, boredom, or uncertainty. She has learned to sit with herself, to explore her own inner world, and to find comfort in her own company. This self-sufficiency is not cold. It is warm, steady, like a flame that does not flicker at the slightest breeze. She doesn't grip relationships tightly out of fear. She holds them gently, knowing that true connection grows when it is allowed to breathe. In love, this kind of independence is irresistible. She brings her own fullness into the relationship rather than looking for someone to complete her. She doesn't lose herself in romance, she enriches it. Her partner feels invited into her world, not relied upon to build it for her. And this creates a dynamic that is profoundly attractive. She is not a burden, she is not a puzzle to be solved. She is a presence to be experienced. She becomes a companion, not a dependency. And because she chooses rather than clings, her choices carry weight. When she loves, you know it is not out of necessity, but out of desire. When she commits, it is a conscious act, not a desperate one. When she stays, it is because she sees value, not because she fears being alone. This makes her love more meaningful, her connections more authentic, and her presence more cherished. Independence also lets her move through the world with curiosity. She explores new ideas, tries new hobbies, builds new skills, not because she needs to prove herself, but because she enjoys the discovery. She invests in her growth, her health, her mind, her creativity. She becomes a continuously evolving human being. And evolution, when done with intention, is one of the most attractive forces in existence. People are drawn to those who are growing, expanding, changing, not in chaotic bursts, but in steady, thoughtful rhythms. What makes her truly irresistible is that she does not position herself as someone waiting to be chosen. She chooses her life every day. She chooses her peace, her joy, her path. And because she has embraced this freedom, she becomes someone others want to walk alongside, not to guide her, not to carry her, but to join her. Her independence is not a barrier, it is an invitation to meet her where she already stands, whole, vibrant, and beautifully self-defined. And it is this very fullness, this quiet, radiant certainty, that makes her impossible to forget. There is something unmistakable about a woman who radiates authentic femininity and poise. It's not about elegance in the traditional sense, nor is it about conforming to some idealized image of what a woman should be. It is the natural grace that appears when she stops performing and starts inhabiting herself fully. There is no effort in it, no strain, no competition. She is simply at ease in her own skin, and that ease becomes a kind of unspoken poetry. People notice it not because she demands attention, but because her presence invites the senses to rest for a moment. Authenticity, in this sense, is the absence of disguise. She isn't trying to be softer or stronger than she feels. She isn't adjusting her personality like a mask depending on who walks into the room. She is consistent, not rigid, open, not exposed. She moves with the quiet confidence of someone who has made peace with her imperfections. She doesn't need to pretend, because she has discovered that the most attractive form of femininity is not one polished to perfection, but one that breathes with honesty. Her laughter is real, her sorrow is real, her curiosity is real. Nothing about her is rehearsed. And what's delightful is that authenticity naturally creates poise. When you no longer feel the need to defend or disguise who you are, your body relaxes, your voice softens, your energy steadies. You stop bracing against life, and life flows through you more smoothly. A mature woman who embodies this becomes captivating to watch, not because she stands comfortably where she is. Her gestures are gentle, her presence grounded, her aura calm. She carries an inner stillness that others can sense, even before they understand it. This kind of femininity isn't about dress or appearance, though she may take care of those things with intention. Rather, it is an energy, a way of relating to the world. It is in the way she listens with genuine warmth, the way she allows joy to ripple through her without self-consciousness, the way she expresses admiration without hesitation, the way she holds sadness without collapsing into it. She feels deeply but is not ruled by every feeling. She shines without needing a spotlight. And it is this blend of softness and strength that becomes so irresistible. She is not fragile, nor is she hardened. She is resilient in a way that feels fluid rather than forceful. When challenges arise, she doesn't panic or dramatize the moment. She breathes, she considers, she responds. Her composure is not a performance. It is a result of inner alignment. She knows what matters and what does not, and this clarity allows her to remain undisturbed by the small turbulences that unsettle others. People often mistake femininity for something fragile, but in a mature woman, femininity becomes a kind of quiet power. It is the strength to remain gentle in a world that rewards harshness, the strength to stay open when it would be easier to close, the strength to soften without surrendering her boundaries. This combination is rare, and because it is rare, it draws others in without a single word spoken. Her poise does not silence her individuality. In fact, it highlights it. She might have a sense of humor that's playful and sharp. She might have passions that burn fiercely. She might carry a rebellious streak or a surprising boldness. But all these aspects of her express themselves through a center of calm authenticity. And that's what makes her so captivating. Nothing about her feels conflicted. She contains multitudes, yet they coexist harmoniously. There is an unhurried quality to her presence. She is not rushing to be understood, not scrambling to be admired, not competing to be seen. She allows connections to unfold naturally, conversations to breathe, moments to occur without force. In this unhurried state, she becomes magnetic. People lean in. They feel invited, not pressured. They feel welcomed by her warmth, not overwhelmed by her intensity. Her femininity is not a strategy. Her poise is not a tactic. They are simply the reflections of a woman who has learned to honor her own essence without apology. She does not push, she attracts. She does not demand, she inspires, and in a world saturated with noise and performance, her authenticity becomes a rare and irresistible melody, soft, steady, and unforgettable. Growth is a gentle unfolding, a continuous becoming, and a mature woman who commits herself to this journey radiates an irresistibility that is both subtle and profound. It is not the frantic kind of self-improvement that seeks applause or validation. It is the quiet, steady evolution of someone who understands that life is not a static portrait, but an ever-changing canvas. She does not cling to the person she was last year, last month, or even yesterday. She gives herself permission to grow, to shed, to renew. And in that permission, she becomes endlessly interesting. There is something deeply magnetic about a woman who keeps learning, not because she feels insufficient, but because she is curious. She reads not to appear intelligent, but because ideas fascinate her. She explores new experiences because they awaken dormant parts of her. She asks questions not to impress, but because she genuinely wants to understand. Her mind is alive, her spirit engaged, and her presence carries the spark of someone who refuses to settle into stagnation. People feel uplifted in her company, as if her growth encourages their own. Her commitment to self-growth is woven into her daily habits, not as rigid disciplines, but as expressions of self-respect. She moves her body in ways that feel nurturing rather than punishing. She cultivates rituals that restore her. Quiet mornings, reflective moments, creative hobbies, time spent in nature. She shapes her environment intentionally, surrounding herself with books that challenge her, people who inspire her, and routines that ground her. Her growth is not a transformation that happens in grand gestures. It is a collection of small choices that align her life with who she is becoming. And what makes her truly irresistible is that she evolves without losing herself. Her growth is not a rejection of her past, but an integration of it. She learns from her mistakes instead of resenting them. She honors her old selves, the hopeful ones, the wounded ones, the uncertain ones, with compassion rather than judgment. She becomes wiser, not by pretending she has always known better, but by allowing herself to be shaped by the lessons life has offered. This humility gives her depth, and depth is magnetic. Because she is always evolving, she never becomes predictable. There is always a new layer, a new insight, a new discovery unfolding from within her. She might pick up a new interest, reconnect with an old hobby, cultivate a new perspective. She might change the way she speaks, the way she dresses, the way she moves through the world, not out of insecurity, but because she is shedding what no longer reflects her truth. Being around her feels like witnessing the seasons change, subtle shifts, natural transitions, each one offering something beautiful. The way she moves, her growth also enriches her relationships. She does not cling to outdated dynamics or remain in connections that stifle her. She communicates more clearly because she is learning herself more deeply. She chooses relationships that support her evolution, not ones that keep her small. She understands that growth sometimes means outgrowing people, habits, or patterns, and she moves through these changes with grace rather than bitterness. This ability to release what no longer serves her is not cold, it is courageous. And courage is always alluring. But most of all, a mature woman dedicated to growth becomes irresistible because she carries a sense of possibility. She knows that her life is not finished, that her story is not complete, that there is always more to explore. She is not hardened by age, she is enriched by it. Every chapter adds dimension to her. Every experience adds texture. She is not trying to preserve youth, she is cultivating depth. And depth, when met with openness, becomes captivating in a way that superficial charm never could. People are drawn to her not because she is perfect, but because she is becoming. Her evolution reminds others that they too can begin again at any moment. She embodies the wisdom that life is not something to be mastered, but something to be continually discovered. And in that discovery, she shines with a quiet luminance that can't be imitated or manufactured, only lived. It is this ever-unfolding nature, this gentle expansion of self, that makes her unforgettable. Throughout this journey, what we've really been exploring is the quiet, magnetic power of a woman who lives in harmony with herself. A woman who does not seek permission to exist, but instead becomes deeply intimate with her own presence. Each of these qualities we've touched on, self-respect, emotional intelligence, independence, authenticity, and continuous growth, form a kind of inner constellation. They are not steps, or tasks, or performances. They are states of being that naturally unfold when a woman begins to recognize that her value does not come from the outside world, but radiates from within her. When a woman honors herself, she stops negotiating her worth. She becomes calm in her boundaries, rooted in her choices and intentional with her energy. Something shifts in her. She no longer needs to chase what is meant for her, because she has built a life that draws the right people and opportunities toward her. She becomes magnetic without even trying. This isn't magic. It's alignment. As she develops emotional intelligence, the world around her begins to soften. She is no longer pulled into unnecessary storms or trapped in cycles of reactive living. She listens more deeply, speaks more clearly, and connects more authentically. Her stability becomes a refuge for others, not because she sacrifices herself, but because she has learned to navigate her emotions with grace rather than force. She becomes someone whose presence naturally brings harmony. Her independence adds another layer of irresistibility. She is a whole world unto herself, not isolated, but complete. She chooses companionship not out of fear of loneliness, but from a place of abundance. She walks through life with a sense of purpose that does not depend on anyone else's approval. Her freedom becomes a gentle invitation for others to rise to her level rather than pull her down to theirs. Then comes that unmistakable authenticity, the way she carries herself with poise, not as a performance, but as the natural outcome of being at peace with who she is. She doesn't need to pretend. She doesn't wear masks for the sake of acceptance. Her presence is unforced, her femininity a quiet strength, her energy a soft but steady glow. People feel this before they understand it, and they are drawn to her without knowing why. And woven through it all is her commitment to growth. She is always evolving, always learning, always expanding into new parts of herself. She refuses to stay small. She refuses to remain unchanged out of comfort or fear. Her life becomes a continuous unfolding, and that unfolding gives her depth, texture, and beauty that only time and awareness can create. She becomes a reminder that we are never finished, that we are always becoming. When these qualities come together within a woman, she becomes irresistible in the most profound way. Not because of how she looks, not because of what she does, but because of who she is becoming. She becomes a force of nature, quietly powerful, deeply grounded, endlessly growing. And that kind of presence lingers long after she leaves the room. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. And may life bless you, guide you, and continue to unfold beautifully before you.